Now that we have just looked at the Rashis, I want to look at. I always love the Balaturim, but the Balaturim on the beginning of Parashas Vayakel is just glorious, magnificent, incredible. This is just so beautiful. And so, first of all, he states, let me just, before we start going into the Balaturim, I want to say at the beginning, why would we think that there should be any connection whatsoever between Shabbos and the Mishkan? That anything that was used in the construction of the Mishkan, that's what's prohibited on Shabbos. Like, I mean, like, what's the connection between Shabbos and the Mishkan? Why don't you say whatever's used in another random thing? But why specifically the Mishkan? You could just say whatever's used in the construction of your house or whatever's used to, like to make tzitzis. Why specifically the construction of the Mishkan? All those activities are prohibited on Shabbos. That's a background. So now let's go to the Balaturim, and there's 2 pages of the Balaturim here, and so all of it is beautiful. I'm just going to share with you as we move through the Balaturim. So first he says Vayakel, Moshe gathered. Ksiv La'el, he says earlier, Kikaran or Panav. It says at the end of Parshas Kisisa that Moshe's face, when he came down from the mountain, shone brightly, illuminated. And right next to that is the Parsha of Shabbos. That's to tell us Lomar she'eno domek kerun panim shel Shabbos l'shara yomim. This is to tell us that the way a person glows on Shabbos is not like the other days. The way a person glows on Shabbos is not like the other days. So, meaning to say that people have a different glow on the Shabbos. So, the footnote here in the Balaturim says that this is based upon, the Balaturim's explanation is based upon the Midrash Bereishit Rabbah 11.2. And the Midrash there offers various interpretations of the blessing and sanctification referred to in the verse, Vayivarach Elokim es Yom HaShvi'i Vayikadesh Oso, that God blessed the 7th day and sanctifying it. One opinion is that God blessed Shabbos with the glow of a person's appearance, and he sanctified with the glow of a person's appearance. That we glow differently on Shabbos than from during the week. And why do we glow differently? So the Yefei Zohar explains that this is brought on by the joyous spirit and the extra soul, what's called the Neshama Yisera of Shabbos. So basically, that's what this Balaturim is teaching us. That we get this extra glow on Shabbos, and that's why the Torah places the passage of Shabbos next to the idea that Moshe's face was glowing. There was a story I once read from Rabbi Soloveitchik, and I forget all the details, but I can tell you the gist of it. It says that one time he was when he was growing up as a little boy, he was at Shalashudas, and he sees this person, and he thought he was a stranger, and he says, "Hello, who are you? Can I introduce myself?" And the man, who was basically, the water carrier in the town, said, "Don't you recognize me? Every day I bring you your water." And Rabbi Soloveitchik said he didn't recognize him because every day he was a water carrier. He was dressed in his water carrier clothes, doing his menial labor. But on Shabbos, sitting at Shalashudas, singing B'nai Echala, he looked like an angel. Didn't recognize the person in his glory. That on Shabbos, no matter what we do during the week, on Shabbos we're elevated to the status of angels. That's the first idea from the Balaturim. Then it says, Vayakel. Why does it say the word Vayakel to start? Afisha Balomar Parsha Shabbos. It's to tell us the passage of Shabbos. Meaning to say, why does it start with this unusual word of Vayakel? Because it's then going to tell us about the passage of Shabbos. This hints to the fact that on Shabbosos and Yomim Tovim, we gather together to hear drashos. L'shmoa hadrasha. On Shabbos, it's a mitzvah to gather together, or an inyan, a concept of gathering together to hear extra special blessings. To hear extra special sermons. So here too, I want to share with you something that this edition of the Baal Turim cites in its footnote, that in the Tur, Orach Chaim, which is written by the same author as the Baal Turim. Just one second, let me finish this midrash. He cites a midrash, which is actually not found in any extant editions of our midrashim. That the Torah complained before God, Ribbono Shel Olam, Master of the universe, when Bnei Yisrael will enter the land of Israel, and this one will run to his vineyard, and that one will run to his field. What will become of me, the Shabbos? What will become of me, the Torah? God said to Torah, I have a mate for you by the name of Shabbos. Because on Shabbos, they're going to be free from their work, and they're able to engage in studying your words. Therefore, the Torah writes in the Shulchan Aruch and the Torah Orach Chaim, it's incumbent upon the community to establish public shiurim on the Shabbos, teach people Hashem's laws and His Torah. Okay, so let's just pause for a moment. And moving along with the next Baal Turim, which is now we're starting to get into why I said the Baal Turim. The next two Baal Turims are just absolutely glorious Baal Turims. And the Baal Turim says as follows. It says, these are the things, Asher Tziva Hashem Lasototam, Ela Advarim. Now this first one actually comes, these are the things actually comes from the Gemara in Shabbos, 70a. How many prohibited activities are there on Shabbos? Technically speaking, there are 39 prohibitions. We know there are many more. There are 39 what's called avos, primary categories. Av malachos, primary categories. So it says, these are the things that Hashem commanded for you to do them, or Hashem commanded to do them. Ela advarim, these are the things. So the Baal Turim says, Darshu mikan, the rabbis expounded from here, the Shlosh invitation malachot Shabbos. Normally the Baal Turim actually comes up with these numerical explanations, what we call gematria, on his own. This is one of the very rare times that he actually just pulls it straight from the Talmud. The rabbis learn from here that there are 39 prohibited activities on Shabbos. Kiminyan eileh. Meaning to say that the word elah advarim, the numerical value of the word elah, the gematria of elah is 36. Aleph is 1, Lamed is 30, Hey is 5. That makes 36. And then Devarim, it says Hadvarim, the word Devarim is plural. These are the things. That means 36 plus 2, which is the minimum amount. And then it says the Hey de Hadvarim, the Hey of the things means 1. That includes 1. So therefore you get 39. So that's basically from the Talmud, that the source for 39 activities that are prohibited on Shabbos comes from this idea, Ela Advarim. And even though there are many cases where it says elsewhere, Ela Advarim, most famously at the beginning of Deuteronomy, Ela Advarim Asher, Yiber Moshe Kol Bnei Yisrael, Be'ever HaYarden, and we don't make this alternative, we don't make this drasha. Nevertheless, here we're going to say this case is different because it says by the Melachas Amishkan Ze'adavar, because it had earlier said this is the matter, and it changed it here to write Eila Advarim, and that from the fact that it changed the way it was speaking, it tells us to expound it. La'asot otam, to do. So now this is the Baal Turim in all its glory. He said, La'asot, are the letters of Lamed Tesha. If you take this word to do and you put it in the Wordle, you spell 39. Lamed Tesha, 39. That's what you spell. That there's 39 prohibited activities. And normally the word la'asot has a vav, which would have made it 45. But here it's missing the vav. It's spelled defectively. So, and this teaches us, as the Baal HaTurim, that there are 39 activities which can be done on the vav, on the 6 days of creation, but not on the Shabbos. 39 activities which can be done on the other 6 days of the week. La'asot. When are you supposed to do these 39 activities? On the other 6 days. Then he says, and so too, v'chein, asher bara Elokim la'asot. Where do we say this verse? That God created to do. Asher bara Elokim la'asot. That's written in where? The very, very beginning of the Torah. That says in Genesis chapter 2, Asher bara Elokim la'asot, which God created to make. And this is at the end of the paragraph, which we recite every Friday night, the Kiddush. So we see that the same word to do appears at the very beginning of the creation story, at the end of the creation story, but at the very beginning of the Torah. And in that passage, this is what the Baal HaTurim's greatness. You can just see it right now. How many? He says, it says, Timtza asiyot u'briyot u'muachot v'avayot v'otzayot v'havdalot kulam lamed tes. When you look at the creation story, chapter 1 of the Torah, you find a total of 39 words that are the forms of asiyah, making, bria, creation, milacha, labor, havaya, being, hotza'ah, bringing forth, and havdalah, separation. So there are 39 words of creation, verbs of creation in the opening chapter of the Torah. Now you say, well, is this really accurate? Let's count them up, right? You want to say, let's count them up to see if it's accurate. Luckily, we don't have to do that because we have a footnote here for this excellent edition. I should just say his name. It's the third time I'm looking at it. It's the footnote. This edition was made by Rabbi Avi Gold. He made the footnotes, and he says there are actually 53 words of the 6 roots mentioned by the Baal HaTurim. However, only 39 of these words are either spoken by God as an act of creation or the direct fulfillment of God's words. Another 14 of the Havaya being verbs describe a state of existence, not an act of creation. And so then they go through the 39 words of creating or making that make up the creation story. This indicates that there are 39 classifications of labor. So, Lomar Lamates Malachosein, Chutz Mitoladon. So now the Baal HaTurim is introducing us to another really, really powerful idea. It's not only the 39 prohibited activities don't only stem from the creation of the Mishkan, but the Mishkan is actually a microcosm of the utopian world that God created, or that God intended to, or that God initially created in Eden. And the world itself was created with 39 activities. Those 39 activities are the activities that were necessary to build the Mishkan. And those same activities are what's prohibited on Shabbos. So it's not just the building of the Mishkan, according to the Baal HaTurim. It's also the building of the Shabbos, the creation of the world. And now he writes as follows. He says, also, if you count from, says the Baal HaTurim, mivayakel ad lo sevaro eish biyom Shabbos. If you count from the word vayakel until you shall not kindle a fire, you're going to get to Lamed Tes Tevos. There are 39 words aside from the word Shabbos. Meaning to say, you count from the very beginning of the Torah. I'm just going to count it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Exactly. It's exactly 39. If you count from the beginning of our portion of Vayakel up until the word Shabbos that appears, you count 39 words. 39 words. That teaches us that these 39 activities are prohibited on the Shabbos. Once the Shabbos starts, you have to stop the 39 activities. So we've seen that the Baal HaTurim is telling us that the 39 activities really stem from the way the world was created. Those were the verbs used in the creation of the world. Those are the things we weren't allowed to do when we built the Mishkan. Those are the things that we have to stop doing once the Shabbos starts. We have to stop the world of creating and come really into the world of Torah, into the world of study, into the world of just immersing ourselves in the spiritual as opposed to in the creative, in the world of the extra neshama, the world of the face glowing. So this is the introduction that the Baal HaTurim teaches us. But we're still left. He hasn't really addressed why fire. And this is his answer, but I want to share something else. First, he says, what's the reason? Why fire? So he tells us on a technical level, it says, do not make a fire because you needed the fire to build a Mishkan, to cook the dyes and to melt the silver. But then he gives us another explanation. He gives us another explanation. He says, Lo sevaro eish, you're not allowed to kindle a fire. Amar HaKadosh Baruch Hu, God says, Or Shali, my fire, my light, Perush Shel Gehenim, i.e., the fire of hell, Shovas B'Shvilchem. God causes the fires of hell to rest on Shabbos. So if my fires rest on Shabbos, also your fires have to rest on Shabbos. That's what the Baal HaTurim is saying. That do not kindle a fire because my fire rests on Shabbos. And the Zohar to Vayakel explains, when the Shabbos arrives, all types of harsh fires are hidden and covered over. This includes even the fires of hell. So on Shabbos, even the sinful ones find rest. So if you don't want to arouse the fires of hell, don't make a fire in your dwellings on Shabbos. Okay, so now we've gone through the Baal HaTurim, and he's just painted this incredible picture of Shabbos. This incredible picture of extra soul illuminates us. We're supposed to recognize on Shabbos the creation of the world through 39 activities and our attempt to create a sanctuary in space of the Mishkan. And we cease from all this activity on Shabbos, and we also connected that even the sinners, even people who live the sinful life, they have a respite on the Shabbos. Let me just pause for a second before going on to the next piece, which is so outstanding. Okay, so What is it up? What's up with the fire? Osavaru eish. You should not make fire. Also, it doesn't just say fire. There's these extra words. You shouldn't make fire bechomos vosechem, in all your dwelling places. It doesn't just say don't make fire. It also says don't make fire in all your dwelling places. What's the idea here? So in the Sefer of Rabbi Stern, he writes as follows. Rabbi Mechel Stern, he writes as follows. Quotes the Zohar, the great Kabbalistic work, the Zohar. And the Zohar says, Lo sevaru eish, b'chol moshvosechem b'yom HaShabbos. The Zohar says, the Zohar Kodesh writes, do not make a fire in all your dwelling places on Shabbos. Fire is the fire of an argument. That you have to go out of your way not to allow there to be a fire of an argument in your home of the Shabbos. And he says, he quotes here Rabbi Stern. He says, because since people are home, they're not working, maybe they have extra time, then they'll be free. They'll be sitting around talking. Well, when you talk, sure enough, somebody's going to say something, get insulted, comes to an argument. Before we continue with Rabbi Yechiel Mechel Stern, Gemara in Shabbos, not Gemara in Shabbos, Gemara in Gittin, Nun Beis tells us that the Satan comes on Erev Shabbos, the Satan comes, and specifically tries to get the people in the household to get into a fight on Erev Shabbos. That's the most desirable time for the Satan to get us to fight. Because the Satan knows the power of Shabbos. The Satan knows the power of Shabbos with the extra soul, with the illumination of the light, with the Neshama Yisera, that even the fires of Gehenna can't work. So the Satan knows that his job is to get us to get into a fight, because otherwise the power of Shabbos is so great that the Satan can't even stand up to it. Even the Satan can't stand up to it on Shabbos. So the Satan is saying, I'm going to get you guys to fight on the Shabbos. I'm going to get you to lose your anger, to lose your temper. Therefore, it needs to be a special thing. You want to make the Mishkan. You want to create a special space. It starts by lo sevaru eish b'chol moshvosechem, by not making this fire on Erev Shabbos, by not making the fire on Shabbos and not allowing the Satan to be successful in his efforts. And here is that's the concept from the Gemara in Gittin. And this is what Rabbi Yechiel Mechel Stern says. He quotes Rav Yosef Mipozno, and he was the son-in-law of the Noda Yehuda. He says that there was this is based on Gemara in Shabbos 118a, that there was a merchant or a perfume salesman who went to nearby the cities around Tzipori, and he was screaming out. He was trying to sell his wares. He was saying, who is the person who desires life? Guard your tongue from speaking evil. So, but why did he go specifically to Tzipori? Why specifically the town of Tzipori? You know where Tzipori was? In the Galilee. Tzipori was in the Galilee. Because in Tzipori, we know that the day there was longer. It was the place in Israel that had the longest days. And therefore, Shabbos ended the latest. And so therefore, he went to these places, and since they had a long Shabbos, they're sitting around in Shabbos. He's worried they're going to speak Lashon Hara. So therefore, that was why he was warning them. But Tzipori also had another thing, that Shabbos was the longest. That what he was saying is that it's the greatest, wherever there's the greatest possibility for spiritual success, there's also, unfortunately, the greatest danger spiritually. Like if you're just floating along in life and you don't care, you won't have these problems. But specifically because on Shabbos we're glowing already and we're making these efforts to gather, therefore we have these concerns of the potential for this danger. And so therefore it says, Lo sevaro eish b'chomosh lo seichem, in all your dwelling places, specifically in your home. You have to be extra careful not to make, God forbid, animosity or enmity or lead us to a place of problematic behavior. Okay, so this is what the Zohar HaKadosh says. And I had said I was going to go straight to Rabbi Soloveitchik, but then I figured, you know what I want to do? Before we get to Rabbi Soloveitchik, I saw something beautiful from Rabbi Jonathan Sachs. So I don't usually cite him because the reason why I don't cite Rabbi Sachs usually is not because he's not great. Rabbi Sachs of blessed memory, just the opposite. Because I always feel like he's so great, he's so ubiquitous that everybody's citing him. And you don't need me to cite him to you. But then I feel like, maybe I haven't cited Rabbi Sachs enough. So people might think I'm not a big fan. Chas v'sholom, just the opposite. Like the shoemaker's children go barefoot. So I wanted to share with you what he saw here. He has this beautiful paragraph. This is how he summarizes Shabbos. He says, the Sabbath is not simply a day of rest. It's an anticipation of the end of history. It's a mini anticipation of the end of time, the Messianic age. So the Shabbos is the mini Messianic age. Think about that, my friends. Shabbos is the mini Messianic age. If you want to know what Mashiach is like, it's Shabbos. I think about it like this. You know what Shabbos is like? The time of the Mashiach. And it's going to be like this. Mashiach is, or the world to come. This is Rabbi Sachs not saying this, what I'm saying. It'll be Shabbos. And everybody's going to be in the special Shabbaton, celebrating Shabbos with the Torah, the Shalashuris, the people, the davening, and Shabbos will end at 9:00 that night. And it'll come to, the clock will suddenly say 8:50. It'll say 8:50. And then the clock will break. So all the people who love Shabbos, all the tzaddikim, will be like, yes, we have more Shabbos. We have more Shabbos, more days of Shabbos. And all the people who hate Shabbos, that same space will be for them Gehenim. That's what it means. The fires of Gehenim are turned off on Shabbos. That for them is Gehenim. They don't know what to do with Shabbos. They never appreciated the value of Shabbos. And so all of a sudden Shabbos will be turned off and they'll just be sitting there. It'll be the exact same space for the tzaddikim and the rishayim, just that the tzaddikim will love it and the rishayim will hate it. Anyway, okay. So it says Rabbi Sachs, writes Rabbi Sachs, Shabbos is not simply the end of history. Shabbos is the anticipation of the end of history. On it, we recover the lost harmonies of the Garden of Eden. This takes us back to the Baal HaTurim was saying, and it reminds us of the beginning of the world. We do not strive to do, we are content to be. We are not permitted to manipulate the world. Instead, we celebrate it as God's supreme work of art. We are not allowed to exercise power or dominance over other human beings, nor even domestic animals. Rich and poor inhabit the Shabbos alike with equal dignity and freedom. No utopia has ever been realized, meaning to say, with one exception, the world to come. The Sabbath is a full dress rehearsal for an ideal society. It has not yet come to pass, but will do because we know what we're aiming for, because we experienced it at the beginning. So the Shabbos is what we're all striving for, that perfect world. We now begin to sense the full symbolic drama of the Mishkan. In the wilderness, long before they crossed the Jordan, God told Bnei Israel to build a miniature universe, a place of carefully calibrated order. The building of the tabernacle was a symbolic prototype of the building of a society. Just as it was an earthly home for the divine, so would society become if Israelites honored God's laws. Anyway, he goes into it more, but I want to just share his beautiful idea that Shabbos represents the culmination of the world, meaning to say we don't have to wait for the Messianic age to taste it. We could taste it when we observe the Shabbos properly. We could taste it when we're just really appreciating the essence of what Shabbos is. And the more we observe the Shabbos, the more we'll appreciate it and value it and become like that person in Rabbi Soloveitchik's story, who was so transformed that his people didn't recognize him. I also saw a similar thing from Rav Volbe. Rav Volbe said basically the same story as Rabbi Soloveitchik. He said, Rav Volbe writes as follows. He writes, the altar of Kelm's face was white as a sheet throughout the week, but on Shabbos his cheeks looked red. Rav Yerucham Levovitz, the mashgiach of the Mir, his appearance on Shabbos changed to such a degree that a new student who saw him on Shabbos, after meeting him earlier in the week, thought that a new mashgiach, he was the mashgiach, the spiritual counselor, thought that a new one had come to the yeshiva. On Shabbos, we're supposed to dress differently. We're supposed to have special clothes reserved just for Shabbos, special food reserved just for Shabbos, special reading material reserved just for Shabbos. Everything for Shabbos should be special. Anyway, let me stop and take some questions if people would like to ask questions at this time.